Well, hello again there. Kyle Lendrip here from the Indy Star. Had a few topics I want to touch on with you today on this Friday, starting with the IHSAA's vote at the executive board meeting today to approve what is a basic framework for a first-time transfer that will go into effect June 1st. There'll be some discussions in the next couple months leading up to a May 5th vote, which will make it official. But that first-time transfer would allow, and the basic framework for this was put out by the IHSAA today. Had heard there are not going to be real specific details from people the last couple of days about all the details that go into this transfer policy change, but basic idea here is this: students whose first transfer is from IHSAA member school to member school maintain full eligibility regardless of move of address or anything if it occurs during the first 6 semesters of high school. So basically, if you're up until the end of your junior year, if you're not transferring after your junior year, I guess, and you have to work out the specifics, I think, on what the deadline is and things like that. And also there will be, from talking to Paul Neidig last week, some rules about, transferring during the season. You probably have a 30-day sitting out period during the competition season. So none of that stuff was in this release today. So I assume some things still have to be put out on that or approved on that or discussion on that or whatnot. But that was kind of the first part, is the students who transfer from member school to member school, if it occurs during the first 6 semesters of high school, will have full eligibility. No questions asked about, athletic motivation or, things like that. There will still be, the undue influence and recruiting and pass link, things like that, all still in place. But so that's the big part of it. The second part was any second subsequent transfer and from non-IHSAA member schools will be handled in similar fashion. So, second transfer, you're probably going to go through a process where, it has to be signed off on. There has to be some sort of waiver involved of eligibility. And still, I think, possibility of getting eligible if you're a second transfer, but you'll be met with some resistance, I think, certainly on that front in that situation. Also coming from a non-IHSAA member school as well. And then the third part of it was students who transfer a second time and go back to their original school will maintain full eligibility. And that's something, again, we've talked about and written about previously. So you could go to a school, decide, or you could transfer, go to that school, decide it's not for you, return to your original school of address, basically without resistance again, and get eligible. So again, these things, nothing really surprising on that front. This is and again, talking to some people in the, on the board or, in these meetings, or even not in the athletic directors who are involved or just aware of this process, I think, it's not something that I would say a majority of those people are in favor of by any means. I think, this is definitely being, the initial push for this is coming from the legislature, and certainly that's happening around the country. A lot of states are going to this either one-time transfer. I think Oklahoma, reading from what they've done, this is very similar to what Indiana is going to be doing in the future, it looks like. So I'll try to dive more into that and what other states are doing and kind of where things stand and maybe, how many states have something similar to what Indiana, what the IHSAA is putting forward here. I think this is sort of a best case compromise to, just opening the doors to, school choice regardless of motivation. And, that's basically what the legislature was pushing for. That's kind of where this is coming from, is from the school choice part of it, and basically saying you should be able to go where you want, regardless if it's athletic or whatever the case may be. And I think the member schools are saying, well, we need some guardrails put in place, and that's what this first-time transfer, I think, will be, is sort of something where they can still have some things in place, so you're just not bouncing everywhere, playing baseball, at one school, or football at one school, and then going wrestling at another school in the winter season or something like that. So that's kind of and you've probably read or seen previous articles that are more detailed on what could come of this. I know there's a lot of people asking, like, what's the deadline going to be, or what, I don't know. Those details I think are still to be worked out, and probably will be maybe a couple months till we actually know what exactly that looks like with the details in place. So, but essentially what happened today is they approved this framework of the transfer rule, the first-time transfer, and I think we'll find out more about what the 6 semesters mean. It says first 6 semesters of high school. That's obviously through the end of your junior year. So what does that mean exactly if you transfer after your junior year? If it's after your junior year, then I would say your 6 semesters are up. So some of those things are kind of a wording thing. I'm curious to know a little bit more about as well. So, we'll see. But that's pretty big. It's a big rule change, and I think there will be some fallout from, or maybe not fallout, but some, probably more transfers. We do have quite a few now, especially here in central Indiana, and I think that's something to, it's pretty high rate of people getting eligible to play. But I do think on the other side of it, maybe a black and white rule here kind of eliminates some of the problems we've seen with transfers in the past, and we wonder, well, why is this kid not getting eligible? When the kid across the street who's doing the same thing, or at the neighboring school, these cases look very similar in a lot of situations, and one gets eligible and one doesn't. So I think even some of the IHSAA people have agreed with that in the past, that assessment. It just doesn't look fair in some regard. So I think that this maybe is going to be a good thing from that standpoint, but we'll see. Pretty big change, and again, that will be put in place by June 1st. So if it's approved at the May 5th meeting of the Board of Directors, it'll go into effect on June 1st. I expect all that will happen. Maybe some more details forthcoming on that in the next few months as far as that goes. But again, IHSAA changing its transfer rule, or changing the framework, I would say, to leading to that path of a change in transfer. Also, some news today: the Carmel Center Grove rivalry is back on as far as football goes. I don't know about, and they were playing in some other sports as well. So the relationship had kind of thawed out in recent years. Recent months, or maybe in the last year or so, they had decided not to play each other. There was a few things leading up to that, but then the Center Grove basketball against Carmel a couple of years ago, and the students ran on the court, and just kind of led to some bad blood between the schools, I think, and was maybe sort of a last straw type situation. And Carmel decided they weren't going to play Center Grove, and at the time, and then there was kind of a background leading up to that, was the Carmel and Center Grove had been voted out of the MIC after trying to get into the HCC. Neither one were voted in, and then they were basically independents after the MIC voted them out. So that happened pretty quickly at the end of 2021, and then this happened in 2023, early in 2023. So it's been about 2 years since they decided they weren't going to play each other. So good to see. At the end of the day, I think it's a good thing. I think Center Grove changing over Joe Bronkella, their athletic director, and I talked to Jim Inskeep over text a little bit, and he said it's been important that they've kind of been able to work together with Bill Long, the Center Grove superintendent, and Joe Bronkella, and kind of get things going again. And it's a good. The Copper Kettle game is a good game to have on the schedule, obviously, and a huge game, huge rivalry game over the years since going back to 1998. Probably at one time was definitely the biggest game on the schedule, you could say. As far as the attendance, the the stakes on the line, the kettle itself, the trophy, and just bragging rights and everything. And a lot of times, and Ben Davis and Warren would have a say in this too. But the MIC championship was in a lot on the line in those games over the years. So it's been a good traditional rivalry game, and good to see that will happen again. This will be 2026, so not this coming year. But it sounds like, and the contract hasn't been all worked out, details and everything on how long they'll play, but it sounds like it's going to be a long-term situation. Their first game in 26 will be at Carmel, and then they'll kind of move forward from there and hopefully be on the schedule for good again. So that's good news, and good to see those teams playing each other again. Moving forward here in football anyway. I don't know, basketball, I don't know. Again, wasn't as huge of a rivalry in basketball anyway, but to have that football game on the schedule will be a good thing. Moving forward, the sectional draw, another topic here is on Sunday night at 6 p.m., 6 to 8 p.m. I wrote a little something about that and the kind of the storylines that'll be coming to look for, and maybe some teams to watch or some sectionals to look for that could be, some where the draw will maybe matter a little bit more than in others, I would say. And it'll be a little bit different this year too. And I wrote a little bit about this, but Class 4A, with only having 81 teams, there are only 17 games played in 4A during the week. So the Tuesday, Wednesday nights are not as full as they used to be. So that's because of the reclassification, which has only 20% of the teams in 4A, then 25 in 3A, 25 in 2A, and 30 in 1A. So that has changed the landscape of 4A a bit, and also it has made 3A a lot tougher with the addition of Cathedral. Cathedral, Addicts, and New Pal, which have all dropped into 3A because of the reclassification manner in which they do it now. So that has changed things also. We'll see it in it'll make the draw, and I don't know that the draw necessarily matters as much in the sectional with Addicts and Cathedral. I think those two teams are going to play each other at some point along the way, no matter which round it is. But whoever comes out of that sectional anyway at Shortridge is going to be arguably the favorite or one of the favorites to win the state title. But man, you've also got some really good teams out there in 3A. New Pal playing at Shelbyville. They will have Greenwood and Roncalli and Shelbyville also in that one. Brownstown Central's in 3A this year. They lost to Jeffersonville last night, but again, a very, very good team. They have Silver Creek in their sectional. Brownstown beat them pretty handily earlier this year. That's sectional 30 at Charlestown. Charlestown's having a good year, and Cordon Central also is a good team. So when you look around here, though, I would say the sectionals to watch in Class 4A certainly is Carmel, sectional 8 at Carmel. And maybe not quite as deep of a team this year, or deep of a field this year. Fishers is, I think, pretty clearly the best team. That 35-game winning streak probably would lead you to think that. But I think Westfield's a team they've given Fishers trouble earlier this year. Led that game pretty late. Noblesville, I think, also could be a factor there at 15-5, although Fishers handled them easily earlier this year. And then Zionsville, IHSAA, and Carmel are the other three teams in that one. Then at Muncie Central, maybe one of the bigger storylines will be Greenfield Central. Can they win their first sectional with Braylon Mullins in 27 years, the 27-year streak of not being able to do it? And then Anderson and Mount Vernon also in that one. As well. So, and then sectional 10, with Addicts and Cathedral out of there, takes on a different look when you got Lawrence North ranked in the top 10, maybe the favorite, but then Warren Central, which has split 2 games with LN this year. North Central's got a very good team that is capable. They played really well in the Marion County tournament, won that tournament. And then Lawrence Central, which is playing outstanding, coming off wins over Greenfield Central and Ben Davis last weekend. And then I think a kind of a sleeper maybe that may be the toughest sectional is sectional 11 at Avon, where the Orioles are ranked second in the state, 18-2. And then have Ben Davis and Pike, and then Plainfield and Brownsburg, and those teams are capable certainly of pulling off an upset or two for sure. So that'll be interesting to see. Of course, Ben Davis has been playing without Mark Zachary all year. I think there's still a very good possibility we could see him out there again as we near the end of the season and potentially in that sectional tournament as well. So, again, you can find all that, kind of previewed all that stuff on Thursday in the Indy Star. So talked about a lot of the other sectionals as well in Class 2A and beyond. So a lot of stuff in there on that. And then also big night potentially tonight for Azavier Robinson from LN. Could break the all-time scoring record at Lawrence North. He's just 6 points behind Greg Oden for that honor. Eric Montress actually scored more points overall, but he some of that was his first year at Park Tudor. So the all-time record for Lawrence North players is Greg Oden, and he is at 1773, Robinson at 1767. So he's closing in on that. Should, I would think, be able to get that tonight against Pike. So look for that potentially to happen. And then a couple other things. Cannelton, wrote about the Cannelton team in Thursday's online. I think it was in print today on Friday. But yeah, I mean, you talk about a school that, it is, or a team that is on the other end of the spectrum from a lot of the teams that I cover over the course of the season. And, Cannelton, I had heard about this team. Someone sent me a really heartfelt note about them. Had seen them play earlier this year. And, so that kind of triggered my interest. And then was able to go down and see him on Monday, watch him play, talk to Mike Garrett, the coach, and all the players. And, it was really and they lost that game. But, they have won a few times this year, three wins, 2 against the same team, and then that was Kentucky team, and then beat Washington Catholic, which is winless so far this season. But it was fun to be involved in their world and got a ton of feedback on that story. So that's pretty cool. I know they have too. So I'm glad that, they've been able to maybe feel some of probably something they, rarely do feel. And, that's that people care about what they're doing. But, and that it's really neat to me that they're just even finishing the season or even decide to start the season, let alone be able to make it all the way through with only their 5 players. So, it's just and again, that's on IndyStar.com. You can look for that story if you want to. But yeah, I think it's just a cool thing that they're doing. And hopefully, they've got 6 players, 6 8th graders who are pretty good coming in next year. That should be able to help quite a bit. And but just to keep the program going, man. I mean, it's sometimes if you don't have a team, who's to say you come back the next year? People think you're a dead program. So these 5 guys decided they wanted to do it and have done it. And Mike Garrett, the coach, has even through all the frustrations, and I could feel his frustration at times watching him on Monday, but, they've been able to at least survive the season and keep this thing going to carry it on going into next year. So, again, the Cannelton story, that's up on IndyStar.com as well yesterday if you want to check that out. But pretty cool team, and was glad to be able to spend some time with those guys. And just real quick, I got quickly 3 other things. Jeffersonville, get a lot of questions about them, and they are playing really well right now. They beat Brownstown Central last night. I watched about the second half of that game mostly. Michael Cooper had another big game with 27 points, and Trey Singleton had 17. But team that's really clicking right now. They beat New Albany last week. Have had some losses along the way during the season, but a lot of those are before Singleton came back from injury. So again, they're a team I think that can knock some people off, and they're going to have to get through a pretty tough sectional, which includes New Albany and a Seymour team that's been playing pretty well. But when you talk about teams that maybe could match up with Fishers down the road, I think that's a team that could do it. And they're tested. They were 1 point away from making the state finals last year, so a lot of motivation, I think, on that team. A lot of senior leadership on that team. So the Red Devils 15-5 they play Wrights tonight. That'll be another interesting game playing at home. So again, Jeffersonville playing really well. Also Martinsville, their quarterback AJ Reynolds committed to Marion yesterday. So, and that's he was excellent, outstanding quarterback for that Martinsville team that really had a breakthrough season this past year. So big commitment for Marion, I think, to get A.J. Reynolds. He's a guy who can throw and run, does both really well. Obviously more of a passer, but had a great season last year as a senior. And then his best receiver, Hunter Stroud, committed to IU as a preferred walk-on. So big commitment there. He had a huge year last year, 106 catches for 1,418 yards and 16 TDs. And playing basketball for the Artesians this winter, but very outstanding athlete. He's a smaller receiver, but really athletic guy. So Hunter Stroud commits to IU. And then lastly, Kyle Ray stepped down as Heritage Christian's football coach, and did a great job there. He's taken a job as principal, and we'll be moving on from that position. And I think next week, I heard earlier this week, I think next week the North Central job will probably be filled. So look for that one. That one right now, probably the biggest job, at least from a size of school standpoint. And now Heritage Christian will have an opening also with Kyle Ray stepping down. But pretty big job out there. North Central, literally a big school, but then also just a big rebuilding job. And I think some things in place maybe that weren't before with Derek Hart having been there the last couple of years. So they'd been building. The wins didn't follow at this point, but I think maybe that program's a little bit better placed than it was. But that'll do it for today. And again, the IHSAA, kind of the big thing here is the IHSAA changing its rule on the transfers, or at least the framework for it. And that will be, we'll have more information. I mean, it's going to be a little bit while maybe before we have full details on what that will look like. But by the spring, it'll be, I think, set in place going into June, really. June 1st, the rule will go into place. And I sort of assume all of this is going to go, it's going to happen. So, but yeah, the framework basically is passed today, and we'll move forward from there. Thank you.